All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of ETC Talk. And I'm happy to be here with fellow ETC content creators and enthusiasts. And I just want everyone to go around the room and introduce yourselves and, how you got. No, first of all, just introduce yourself and tell us about your YouTube or website or whatever way you promote your stuff. So my name is Salom Jaka and my YouTube is Patient Money. Okay. All right, Donald.
I'm Donald McIntyre. My YouTube is Etherplan, and my website is etherplan.com.
My name's Callum, and I have Financial Journey on YouTube.
How's it going, guys? It's Savage Profits here, and my name is Angel Alvarez, if you don't know my name as of yet.
I'm Peter Cordy. You could find me on YouTube, and everywhere else is just Peter Cordy.
All right. Good to have you all. So today is going to be more of a casual talk, and if we do have questions from the viewers, we will take those as well, and pretty much set the tone for the next show, which will be more specific. We are going to answer questions that are really hot right now pertaining ETC. So I want everyone to go around the room. Well, I think most of us know how Donald got involved, but you still be brief. Tell us how you first got involved with ETC and what makes you excited about ETC.
Thank you. I am the oldest one here, so I started in 2013 following Bitcoin, and then Vitalik Buterin invented Ethereum, and then I started an app that was going to work on Ethereum, and in 2016 there was the fork where Ethereum decided to go in another direction, and ETC remained as the mainnet. And but I stayed a little bit in Ethereum, trying to convince Vitalik and the rest of the developers not to migrate to proof of stake. But it didn't work. So in 2018, I started to work in ETC, and I've been a volunteer in ETC ever since.
I recently got into cryptocurrency in general mid last year. So out of anything, obviously, I was looking for a lot of hedges against inflation, and ETC. I'm a big value investor in general, and ETC definitely allured me as far as that goes. But basically, yeah, especially after doing a lot of research as well, there's a lot of pros about ETC and a huge amount of following. So it just kind of everything just was very alluring in general.
How's it going, guys? I actually first came across Ethereum Classic in early January, and it was around $6 to $7 at that time in that price range, those juicy prices. But the biggest regret in my life, well, not the biggest, but one of the biggest regret was selling for short-term gains, which is why I'm currently a long-term sitting duck and am hodling all the way out. So yeah, I've been in it ever since April. I bought back in early April, and I've been adding ever since then. And I'm just extremely bullish. I don't believe it was the right call for Ethereum to reverse the chain during the DAO hack. So that's why I'm a big fan of Ethereum Classic, because they are truly immutable. Now we'll probably hop into that later on, but let's let Peter talk.
Sure. I have kind of a weird journey with ETC. I actually started off as a Bitcoin maximalist. I was very against ETC when I first heard about it. I thought every altcoin was just worthless and useless. In 2016 is when I actually started with cryptocurrency, and when I started learning about cypherpunk principles. And that's when I started buying Bitcoin, but only a little bit. I really started accumulating in 2018 after the big crash, and everyone thought Bitcoin was dead. So I put every paycheck that I ever earned working retail into it. I'd even write people's college papers for $300 a pop and put that into Bitcoin. So yeah, I just thought every altcoin was a pump and dump scheme at first. But at one point, my best friend was in a tight pinch with money, and he needed to make a quick $1,000 to pay off a debt. And instead of recommending some illegal ways, I was studying technical analysis, and it just so happened that this smallish crypto called Ethereum Classic looked primed to jump in price. So I told him to buy that Friday, sell that Sunday. It paid off. And you know what? I decided to look into this Ethereum Classic thing, and I was wrong. This project is fundamentally sound, and something I really can't say about most altcoins. So I started dollar cost averaging throughout the whole bear market, and here we are today.
Right. Wow. Interesting. So for me, back in 2017, I was going on a military mission, and I knew I was going to be away for a long time. And one thing I learned with such trips was it was easy to be a long-term holder because I buy the stuff and I don't have access to it for like 9 months. So I bought like a little bit of maybe the top 20 or top 30 coins at that time, just a little bit of each one of them. And while I was away, I just decided to, okay, let me read a little bit about these coins that I own now. And again, I saw the attacks on ETC, and that put a lot of fear, right? But I like those things because they create opportunity. So price did buy a whole lot, and when I came back, I decided to get some more. But it was early this year that I really got serious about it. So I mean, ETC has been very influential. It's ETC and Doge have played a big role in me being able to purchase a home, and I'm still working towards buying back all the ETC that I sold. And so I do have weekly, bi-weekly buy-ins, and sometimes I even post about it on Twitter as well. So that's my ETC journey, and I think there's just a lot of opportunity there. There are people who just don't give it, the benefit of the doubt just because it's been attacked before, and that's gonna leave ETC very undervalued for a long time. If we go maybe 2-3 years without an attack, all those people will start coming back, but by then we will already be in. So, all right,
I agree.
now, what is the next question I have for you guys here? Okay, so did you guys all tell us about what excites you about ETC? What really excites you about ETC?
We start with Donald.
Yes, Donald always.
I was asked that in 2019, and I think that the first reason was it all started with Bitcoin. No, in 2013, I come from Costa Rica and Argentina. My parents live in Brazil. We also lived in Venezuela. So I come from countries that have a lot of problems with economic stability and their currencies. No, and when I lived in Argentina, there were 5 currencies. In Argentina, they passed a law, and they say, okay, the old currency was so related, it has so many zeros, that one day they say, okay, now we have a new currency. We take out 8 zeros, and this is the new currency. And then after a few years, again with inflation. So property and sound money, etc., is something that I lived. No, I grew up lacking, and when Bitcoin came, I started to understand it deeper. And it's about Bitcoin is a property titles ledger with a currency inside, so it has both things. Bitcoin is a very secure property system, and you have accounts with balances inside. So it has sound money, and it's also a strong property rights system. And the fact that it's decentralized and trust minimized makes it global, seamless, and it's incredible because today, for example, in Afghanistan, people are moving Bitcoin and they cannot move their own money, or Western Union closed down. And then the next evolution of that was the same but programmable. No, Bitcoin can't do it because of its technology. And Ethereum can do it. Vitalik, the great, brilliant thing of Vitalik was not really inventing smart contracts, but inventing a platform that supported smart contracts with a few features. Now the EVM, the state machine, the programming language, the gas system, all those things enable programs inside a decentralized ledger. And so that is for me, what completes the picture and makes it programmable. And you can as an entrepreneur, I can build startups and dApps, new products, because it's a generalized kind of blockchain, no? Not like Bitcoin that is only digital gold, which is extremely valuable. But ETC is also extremely valuable because it is Bitcoin, but with smart contracts. So that's what excited me.
Yeah, how am I going to lead that? That's, I don't know how I'm going to follow that. I'm short and sweet. To be honest, I'm excited about the future of ETC. There's so much that can actually be done with it. Kind of a lot that Donald mentioned, but more so just the amount of money that you can make. Like I said, I'm a big value guy, and this is like based on especially similar alternate coins. Like it's trading at a huge discount, and I love making money, and you can make a lot of money with ETC. More so, obviously, in general, most cryptocurrencies you can, but I think more so the relation with ETC to comparable coins, you can definitely make a lot of money. So yeah, that's basically it.
I was muted. Okay. What excites me about Ethereum Classic is the fact that it has like so many options of routes that it could take. So I feel like it's a lot more safer alternative to invest in Ethereum Classic rather than something like Doge, where you're relying on like the pump of a tweet or the hype of a community. Now, not only does Ethereum Classic have a strong community, it's a smart contract blockchain. It's also a capped at 210 million supply, so it works as a store of value as well. So there's plenty of reasons why it could grow in the future. So that's what excites me about Ethereum Classic. It's just too many pros compared to the cons.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ethereum Classic's unique positioning, as well as its opportunities for growth, are what excites me the most. So, like I said a few minutes ago, I was a Bitcoin maximalist who discovered this coin pretty much by accident. But as I often say, ETC is Bitcoin maximalism plus smart contracts. So being a proof of work smart contracts platform with a 210 million supply cap and a fixed monetary policy puts Ethereum Classic in a very unique position at the base layer of the industry stack as a highly secure, programmable digital gold. And as amazing as Ethereum Classic is, and I know Donald can go all day on that, there are still some opportunities for growth. And one of those we're addressing right now altogether. The biggest opportunity we have to get better as a community is to have more of a positive social media presence, more positive press, with more content creators taking interest in it. Marketing has really been the biggest thing holding ETC back from its value being discovered by the masses. So with us coming together and making videos on our own channels, posting on our socials, and just growing the ETC Army community, I think each of us and every single person watching, even if you literally have just 2 followers, can make a big impact. We are so early in this, like the internet in the 90s or YouTube in the early 2010s. When I first started out, I thought the price of ETC this market cycle would peak around $40, and we were trading about $3 at the time. So at one point, I even gave my brother a token to throw out the garbage, which was a terrible financial decision. No one should ever do that. But that's because I didn't even dream we'd be where we are today. Yet we have so much more room to grow in 2021, the rest of the decade, and so on. So yeah, that excites me a lot. It should excite every single person watching.
All right. Yes, for me, ETC, its closeness to Bitcoin and the fact that it can, oh, I hear an echo. All right. And the fact that it can serve as an asset coin and a transaction coin at the same time places it in a very unique position. So when cryptocurrency becomes mainstream, okay, ETC is one of the coins that is closest to Bitcoin and can act as a form of value. Okay, so it could really blow up as a transaction coin. And if that happens, guess what? We will not need to have the most modern infrastructure for that to happen. Just like Bitcoin, it will get more valuable because of the limited supply. And so that's where I see a lot of value in ETC. The potential is just huge for the future of crypto. All right, so now here's a question that I didn't want us to talk about this today, but I think we can just talk about it very briefly. I want everyone to let us know what side they are on, or if they're still on the fence. Okay, are you guys for or against the Treasury? Donald, you first.
Okay. When I started, when the Treasury was proposed, I was against in August of 2020, no, which was when the month when ETC suffered the 51% tax, because it is an obvious thing that the Treasury centralizes a system. No, it becomes de facto corporation. Like when you see Charles Hoskinson talk about the Cardano, he talks about these people and these people. They're all teams, etc. It's like a centralized organization. But that's not the philosophy of ETC. It's fine for Cardano or Ethereum 2 or Polkadot and all those systems, but ETC is a decentralized, digamos, network with no presidents, no CEOs, no kings, no leaders, no anything. And if you put a centralized treasury where you tax mining, not only you lower the the security of the network by not directing money to the miners, who are the ones who work to earn that money, and you put it in a place, in a fund where nobody worked to earn that money, and you just send money to developers. And eventually, nobody's going to invest in that chain, nobody outside of the treasury, because why are you going to risk capital when the system is already monopolizing financing of development, innovation, marketing, um, infrastructure, and all those things. And so the treasury it turns into a centralized decision making system or machine. It's very similar to proof of stake, because to be able to vote on projects and where the money goes, basically you put your coin. So one coin is one vote. So in my case, I would have 600 votes, but Barry Silbert or Charles would have millions of votes. So it would end up like a regular system, a regular traditional system, no, centralized, like a corporation or a municipal government or something like that, where you have centralized decision making. So the second part, a few months later, because I saw that all my typical allies in ETC in the community, at that time the community was smaller, but for example, the ETC cooperative always supported, digamos, all the principles of decentralization in ETC, and Cody Burns and Yas Kuri at the time, and Kevin Lord, all very important people in ETC. And I saw that one by one they were saying, no, we should do a treasury because we were attacked. Everybody was very depressed because ETC was attacked and the price went down to 3 or 4, and then Bitcoin and Ethereum and ETC was still trading at 4. So everybody was depressed, and this image that Charles created, that it's because ETC doesn't have money and that's why it got attacked, which is a lie. Everybody started to believe that, and everybody started to support it. So I said, okay, let's do a compromise. Let's do a treasury, but limited in time, 5 years, and then we delete it. Because while we have the treasury, ETC is not going to be decentralized. It's going to be a centralized decision-making thing. And later, I evolved that opinion to say not only limited in time, but also lower the tax. Now, 20% of mining is terrible for me, because it reduces by 20% the revenues of miners, and it would reduce by 20% the hash rate. Then in the last month and a half or 2 months, IOHK and Charles continue talking negatively about, because the way of selling the treasury is ETC is about to die, therefore we need the treasury. And that fear mongering, typical, the same thing that they're doing with COVID. We're all going to die, therefore you have to be incarcerated inside your home, or you have to wear a mask, or you cannot go to a restaurant, you cannot live your life based on you're gonna die, and this thing, that what they're doing with the treasury is the same. ETC is gonna die, therefore we have to do the treasury. If not, you're not going to be able to buy your house. Your ETC is going to go from 70 or 60 to 1 or 0. You're going to lose everything. So we're all scared by this messaging, and it's a total lie. So when I saw that the tactics were like that, when I saw that the money's going to them, to IOHK and ETC Co-op and one other team, and it's going to be billions. I did the projections, and it's going to be at these prices $70 million per year. And if it goes up to 200, 500, 600, or 1,000, which are my projections, or 8,000 in the future, it's going to be billions of dollars going to these guys. And for what? So I changed my mind totally. I went back to my original view. I don't think that there has to be any treasury. And not only that, IOHK and Charles have proven to be malicious. So I don't want them in ETC either. They have to be evicted, in my opinion.
Very well put. Honestly, I am for the Treasury. Again, I'm a very short and sweet kind of guy. I just put it as simplest form as possible, but it just ultimately adds a lot of confidence for a lot of investors and kind of in the grand scheme of things, and adds a little bit more security. And like you kind of mentioned as well, it just lowers the fees significantly. And ultimately, anything making it more efficient in the grand scheme of things is advantageous to me. And I think I would be for it.
Now, I used to believe in the Treasury, but I don't believe it would necessarily be the worst thing that could happen for Ethereum Classic. Now, after my interview with Donald, I came to realize that once it's implemented, the ecosystem for Ethereum Classic would be reliant on the Treasury. So there would be no way to take out the Treasury, because once those funds are coming in, once these developers and teams are dependent on these funds, then how are we ever going to remove the Treasury or the funds from these teams?
Okay.
Yeah, I've also been on both sides of this issue. I started off in favor of the Treasury as well. But I've been studying it from both sides. I've listened to Donald. I've also had a chance to interview him about it. And I get where everyone is coming from. So Financial Journey, I get where you're coming from too. To be clear, while I am against any form of a treasury, I'm not vehemently opposed to a limited and temporary treasury. But like you said, is that even possible? Like, if we do have it, is it just going to be a cancer that stays forever? So I guess the bottom line is I think implementing such a change to the ecosystem would be inherently centralizing, and it can really be a slippery slope to changing the fundamentals of the coin. The reasons that I love the coin so much, like what's happening with Zcash, which may move to proof of stake after they've implemented a treasury. And I respect the people who support the treasury for the right reasons, not those who are just being greedy and they're trying to shift the money over to their developing pools or developing teams. If you really believe, for example, that paying developers through voluntarism won't succeed in the long term, then I get it. I disagree. And Bitcoin has been a great example of why voluntarism works for a fundamentally sound cryptocurrency. And I think the principles and unique positioning of Ethereum Classic should make it quite attractive to those who do want to fund development without the need to sell out, for lack of a better word.
All right. Yeah, very well put. Okay, so for me, I believe there is middle ground between two sides. I know I've been on Twitter with Donald, and he says there's no middle ground, and I'm like, there's a possibility of a middle ground, which we just have to be able to talk things out. Okay, I've tried to reach out to Charles Hoskinson to interview him, but he didn't get back to any of my tweets, so that ended there. My main problem with the Treasury is when you task the miners 20%, and that money just goes to sit in the Treasury, and that's just money that they have lost. It might just encourage them to just mine and dump, and when they mine and dump, it's going to devalue the coin, right? But the Treasury could be we could go about this in a better way. For example, last year, people in the United States paid about $45 billion in overdraft fees. I'm talking about these are people who did not have the money to begin with, but they ended up paying over $45 billion, right? So what if we have a treasury that kind of serves as a form of decentralized finance system where these miners are not just being taxed, but their money is actually there and it's growing? It will give them more of a reason to mine more ETC and have it in this DeFi system that grows, that actually grows. And but of course, it's going to take a little bit more maintenance, a little bit more planning, a little bit more of everyone coming together. But that way, everybody has a stake in it, because I'm part of several DeFi projects. Some of them without doing anything, you get 9 to 20% annually without doing anything on there, right? So there are many ways we could go about it. If ETC blows up and becomes a very successful asset coin where people come and put their smart contracts on there, we're going to need to innovate to keep up with the traffic. Otherwise, transaction fees are just going to get higher and higher and higher. We've seen that happen with Ethereum. We've seen that happen with Binance Smart Chain. If you've dabbled in blockchain programming and creating stuff, you realize that Binance Smart Chain, it used to be really, really cheap. Of course, that's when Binance coin was $40. Today, Binance coin is now $40. So I think there is a middle ground there, but there has to be some form of control where the miners also benefit as well. Not just that the treasury just has the money and it keeps growing and somebody has all that monopoly.
I think that both Financial Journey and Peter said two very important key things, and that are these things that we all have in our minds that are fighting inside about the treasury. I think Financial Journey said, I'm here to make money. I want the coin to go up, and whatever we do that makes it go up, that would be fine for me. And the treasury, I think, is going to bring trust, no? And it's going to bring certainty, because you have money there and you know that money is going to go to development, etc. So that's a short-term coin value kind of approach. And if in 6 months he sold and he bought a house, then ETC is stuck there with the treasury for the long term. So I think that my response to that is we have to think of ETC like Bitcoin. This is a thing for 10, 30, 50 years, 100 years, has to be working in a trust minimized way. We cannot make decisions based on the immediate need of making money next week. Peter, you said something which is key. Once you put the treasury, even if we put my idealistic design, which is in 5 years it is canceled, and we lower the tax and we make sure before putting it, but once it's installed, the treasury takes control. Whoever has the voting rights there and the voting power is going to decide everything in the network, just like a proof of stake system. Mining is not going to be even useful anymore, it's going to be impossible to take out the treasury once it is installed. I think that the answer to that is that once you put the treasury, you take it out, because it's like a government with a central bank. Once they start printing money and they see that they can print money and finance whatever they want, like what's going on now in the government, it's impossible to take it out. Because all the interest and the incentives of all the parties involved are always going to be to print more money. No, in the case of the government, in the case of the treasury, it's always going to perpetuate the treasury, increase the tax, even in the future. Not only move to proof of stake like Zcash is doing, but also to modify the monetary policy, because to continue the cash flow to the treasury in a perpetual way.
All right. Okay, so we have some questions coming up. If anybody wants to answer any questions, you can go ahead and pick a question and answer. But just briefly, where do you guys see ETC in the future?
Bueno, I think that the current, I'm going to go because I think this is the order, no? So the current the current situation is that we can opt to continue with ETC in a pure cypherpunk and the decentralized way without the treasury. And also, this thing that the treasury is needed is also false. No, until now, since 2016, since Ethereum took all the money and forked away, ETC has had developers, a community, miners, node operators. I saw today that those systems that publish the volumes, it's the 4th or 5th in volume in the world trading. I mean, I don't know what is this imagination that ETC is about to die. It only had the 51% attacks because it was a specific thing. So bueno, this is today. We can opt to continue with that ETC, the real valuable one that is going to be worth trillions in the future, or we can opt to integrate the Treasury, and it's another animal. It's a totally different animal. It's going to be like Zcash or Cardano, Polkadot, Ethereum 2, with people there managing those chains, and it's going to be a trusted system. It's going to be very easy for governments to interfere in ETC in the future. When that ETC, if Cardano is going up, it is possible that ETC is also going to go up, and it may have users, other kinds of users, etc., but it won't be the current ETC. So I am going to, in my imagination, the current ETC, I am going to assume that the Treasury is never implemented, which I think that is going to be the case, because ETC is successful as it is. The current ETC is a network that is going to be in the layered stack of the blockchain industry. It's going to be at the base layer together with Bitcoin. It's going to be the only programmable base layer blockchain in the world. Bitcoin is not, and Doge and Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin are not. And as in that function is going to be extremely valuable, and is going to be used by the other systems in the stack above. Now, the layer 2 are going to be the proof of stake, highly transactional systems. On top of that, you have channels and rollups to make proof of stake even more scalable. And on top of that, you have the apps like stable coins and the exchanges like Uniswap and all that. All the DeFi and all the other industries that are going to come, and on top of that, you're going to have the interfaces, which are the wallets, and all those systems are going to distribute the functions for applications in different parts. Developers are going to realize that, okay, I can have a wallet, and this wallet interacts with Cardano for certain functions, and then with Ethereum 2 for other functions, and then with Ethereum Classic for other functions at the base layer. At the base layer, it's never going to be scalable, like you mentioned, Celorm, because if you're going to have the most secure system, which is proof of work and fully replicated globally, it's impossible to scale. The maximum capacity of ETC that it may reach, but it wouldn't be very safe. It would be like today Ethereum, which is 1.5 million transactions per day. And I think that ETC is going to be fine with 1 million transactions per day. It's going to be secure because that means that the blocks are going to be smaller. So you do need systems on top, yes or yes, for the transactional part.
Okay, so for example, you're saying just like Matic is doing for Ethereum, we need another layer that would do something epic like that for ETC for us to be able to scale on a very large this thing. Okay, got it. Did you freeze, Donald? Yeah, looks like you did.
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay, yeah, but I did get that last point he was making. So, well, Callum, you can continue whenever he comes back.
Sorry.
Oh, you're back.
My internet fell. So you were saying Matic, like Matic is for Ethereum?
Yes, scalability wise.
Yeah.
Ooh, audio is gone again.
It's okay. He's on the other side of the world.
All right. So Callum, you continue while Donald fixes his audio, and then yeah, go on.
Of course. Sorry.
Oh my God.
What was the question? We're going through Q&As right now, or questions? Which was the question?
Oh, the question now is, where do you see ETC in the future?
Okay, fair enough. Honestly, especially with the development of smart contracts going in the future, it's just going to be, it's just going to explode. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Or did you want to finish up, Donald? Or what do you?
What about the Matic and Ethereum thing?
Yeah. If you want to finish up your thought on that.
So Matic is for Ethereum a scalability solution, Ethereum 2, and in Bitcoin has a Lightning Network, RSK for smart contracts, and Liquid, which is another network by Blockstream for scalability and some functions. So anything that you cannot do at the base layer because it's not scalable, you have to do in higher layers. If not, you are reducing. It's a physical reality. You're reducing the security of the base layer. That was the answer.
Okay. So ETC just has to do more to attract these developers to create such solutions for ETC in the future whenever we get clogged, in the future. So it begins with no more attacks. We survived one whole year without attacks. Last year, August was the last attack, and there has not been a successful one yet. So that's great.
There's a mistake there. You said clogged. Clogged is good. I mean, Bitcoin only has a capacity of 577 transactions per day, which is 144 blocks times 4,000 transactions per block, and it is not bad. That is its capacity, and if there's more demand, so the fees have to go up. Higher fees is good because we systems like Bitcoin and ETC, they need to pay high amounts of money to the block producers, the miners, so that they keep a very high hash rate. And because Bitcoin and ETC are going down in block rewards, the only way to replace that is with high fees. So high fees and clogged networks at the base layer is good because it proves the model. And a proof of that is Ethereum. Ethereum, which has incredible demand, and it has 1.5 million transactions per day. Today, and for many months, it's been paying much more in fees to miners than in miner rewards. And that's exactly the future of Bitcoin and ETC.
All right, back to you, Callum.
Honestly, I just think that going forward is just there's a lot, kind of like you mentioned as well, the hacks. I think that is one of the biggest things that, as far as a close short-term hurdle that ETC does need to kind of get past. Just more investor confidence. But you can always see based on the amount of volume on a daily basis on ETC, it definitely is top 4, I believe it is, as far as total transactional volume among the top coins. That speaks volumes. There is a lot of individuals physically getting into ETC, and they're just waiting for the smart contracts to develop and just more advancement in ETC, which is probably hence why it's trading at a substantial discount, in my opinion, right now. So just one of those things that it's, as far as on a risk versus reward level, it's huge. And there's a lot of development that ETC obviously will do in the future. And yeah, it's exciting to see kind of, I don't know, basically sums it up.
Well, I believe Ethereum Classic, like I said, has lots of options and routes it could take in the future. And a prime example is like what Bitcoin is doing right now, solving its slow transaction issues with the Lightning Network running on top of Bitcoin. Now, Ethereum Classic could definitely do the same thing, running as the layer 1, the base layer for all these layer 2s to come and run on Ethereum Classic. Now, they say Ethereum Classic has slow transaction times, but it depends what you compare it to. If you compare it to wiring money, which takes 3 to 5 days, then Ethereum Classic is superior. But if you compare Ethereum Classic to like ADA, which takes seconds, then ADA is superior. But the difference between the two is Ethereum Classic has solved those issues running as the base layer, since it's a smart contract platform. ADA at the current moment, for an example, doesn't even have smart contract capabilities, and that's what they're working towards. But I believe Ethereum Classic is far from dead, and you could sort of see it like if you take a look at Litecoin, how Litecoin has been performing in the past couple of days. People still say Litecoin is dead or Bitcoin SV is dead, but we're still in the early stages of crypto, and I believe over the next 5-10 years, coins like Ethereum Classic with great fundamentals, Litecoin, ADA with great utility uses, all these coins are going to drive up in price in the future. And these are just a handful of coins out of the 11,000 that's currently created at the moment. So that's what I believe.
Just to clarify, Ethereum transactions clear in 15 seconds. ETC transactions. The ones who are taking a long time are the exchanges. They impose 10,000 confirmations before crediting them to your account. So in Cardano, I think it must be 3 or 4 seconds. So yes, a little bit faster, but ETC is 13 to 15 seconds depending on the day.
As far as the future of ETC, I definitely follow Donald's vision. I see ETC as being the second largest proof of work chain in the world. And he can talk forever about that and to his thesis of why. But I think the way we go about this is the most important thing. And that's by getting the right people on board with the project and keeping the principles of code as law, immutability, and others in the process. We need to show everyone why these principles are good for humanity. I think there's a major fundamental case for ETC to be made to Bitcoin maxis who have every reason to love this project. And I think they're the greatest long-term hodlers and diamond hands investors the world has ever seen. And that case will be made intellectually. But these are the people we need on board, I believe, for government adoption. There's another case that can be made to your average crypto investor who isn't as concerned or knowledgeable about the principles of a coin. And that is being made with a bunch of great memes and other awesome content. You see that all the time on Twitter and Reddit, Discord, everywhere. Although I can't generalize the interest of these investors, so they may still find the fundamental case for ETC quite appealing. Again, panels like the one we're doing right now should address both of these groups of crypto investors, but outside of a panel like this, we also need to appeal to your first-time crypto investor who might be 60 years old and not even know what a Bitcoin is. I think we need to reduce the mental barrier of entry for beginners and show them, skeptics, and everyone else the value of Bitcoin as digital gold, and therefore the value of Ethereum Classic as programmable digital gold. I think everyone can fill a different niche, and we all have a different job to do here. So if you are watching right now, start learning about what makes Ethereum Classic so great. Get on Etherplan. Watch what makes it so great, unique. Spread the word, because that, I think, is how we make this surreal future of ETC into a reality.
Awesome. All right. So right now we are waiting on Steven to join us. But in the meantime, Donald has some slides he would like to show.
Yes, I wanted to show the logic of how ETC is going to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. So many people.
I think a lot of people want to hear that. Let's go.
Speaking. I think Peter is right that the ETC's, a lot of the future success is about communication, no? Because we are in a format war, and I think that in format wars, which is a standards war, no, of what system with network effects is going to win, to communicate massively and to keep up the product top of mind in the market is extremely important. And instead of positive communication, it's difficult because to be positive all the time is also a security hole. No, you are open to any stupid idea. For example, the Treasury. You're open to think about, oh, well, it's a little bit centralizing, but yes, I'm going to be positive, so I'm going to accept this debate. No, you have to reject it. So it's difficult to maintain this balance of being positive, at least for me, and at the same time communicating and trying to keep ETC top of mind. No? Can you see my screen?
Yes. Okay. So Steve, once Donald is done, you can introduce yourself and then go on. Okay. All right.
So I explained this table.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the top table is you have the current prices, the current situation of the proof of work coins. You have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and ETC. And these are the prices, and these are the current market capitalizations. If it's true, my argument for why ETC is going to go to 1,000, if it's true that Bitcoin is going to be 125,000 by the end of the year, Ethereum 10, and with the lead of those two coins, which are going to be more or less 2.5 to 3 times higher than today, then it's very likely that the other coins are going to go up in at least the same ratio or magnitude. No, I think that because 1 is a round number, and the market loves that, especially short-term traders. I think that Doge is going to easily go to 1 if the rally continues for Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin are going to go to 2,036 and 538. This is an average, this is more or less 3 times their current prices. And ETC, just by following Bitcoin and Ethereum, should go to around $195 or $200. Now, typically the round numbers are where the market goes. So say $200. So this is the first reason why ETC is going to go up a lot, but this shows only how it's going to go to 200. The thing is that in the meantime, now we go to the second table. Ethereum is going to go away by December, or the first 3 or 6 months of 2022. Ethereum is going to go to proof of stake. It's going to merge and it's going to go away. So ETC is going to be left with Bitcoin, Doge, and BCH as the top 5 proof of work blockchains in the world. And at that time, people are going to realize that none of Bitcoin, Doge, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin are programmable. So it is obvious, for me at least, that the market is going to realize when Ethereum is removed from the proof of work world, that ETC is the only one programmable at the base layer with incredibly strong principles of trust minimization and cypherpunk principles. So I think that now we go to the third table. That is going to make another move for ETC, which is not only to follow Bitcoin and Ethereum Classic, but also to surpass, not only to follow Bitcoin and Ethereum in price, but also to surpass Doge, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin upwards. And that's going to be like the second boost in ETC's price that will take it to $1,000 approximately. No, it has to be higher than Doge, and because Doge is going to be $132 billion, then ETC has to be worth more than Doge, and that's why I put around $1,000 in terms of price. So that is the logic of my price predictions. There's 2 boosters. One is the fact that the leaders are going to go up by 3 times, and the second booster is going to be that that ETC is going to go up in the ranks within the proof of work peloton, I guess.
All right, Steve. Welcome. Introduce yourself and give us the juice on the Treasury. You are muted, by the way.
How's my audio mic check?
Yep, you're good now.
Cool. All right. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm coming off short notice. I'm sorry if there's any little people that come and interrupt me. But yeah, regards to the Treasury, I've definitely supported it. So I've been ETC for quite a long time, from ETC Dev, ETC Co-op, and now at IOHK contributing to the Mantis team. And the main reason I posted a short, like 1-minute video of the Treasury too, but my main pro argument for the Treasury is when it comes to the decentralization versus centralization argument. So I've seen firsthand ETC, its points of centralization. And when you have, while you might have miners and stuff, you still have things centralized. When you have points of centralization at the protocol providing layer. For example, when Ethereum had a hard fork, or had this bug recently, on the whim, things could be changed. So it kind of makes you question, okay, well, how centralized is that protocol providing layer where Ethereum has 75% of nodes go Ethereum? And in ATC side, it's actually even, the protocol providing layer is even, I guess say it has more distribution issues. I don't want to say more centralized on Ethereum in that way, because ETC doesn't have that trademark with it. But you know, when you have one person at any given point of time being the gateway to any kind of protocol providing changes, for example, it was kind of dependent on one person to get the monetary policy in. ETC had adopted a fixed monetary policy. And then, as even Donald has posted about corporate capture in the past, and how has that changed since then? It's actually gotten doubled down more. And then when you have the Treasury coming in, you have, because ETC had a very depressed 2 years, and I'd say it broke that cycle really hard in 2021, which was really good. There's a lot of momentum, a lot of things to go, and people are very excited. Even people who are new to ETC here probably got most excited in 2021. But in order to so even if you have those points of centralization without a treasury, it's like, okay, well, what can a treasury do if you have multiple parties, community voting, and people could vote on decisions and teams and allocations that invest forward in the ecosystem, and so it's a little more democratized in the decision making. For example, when we go on ECIPs, it's really just a few people that come and make decisions, and then that gets pushed through, and most people aren't following that. So when you have a treasury system that puts multiple parties on board, governance, voting for ETC holders, it gives immediate utility to your ETC because you can participate in some type of voting mechanism. And then you also have the prevention of monopolization or franchise by a single entity, which we've been borderline having for the past few years. So as far as the centralization argument, of course, you're going to have human decision makers, as we always have, but we've never had voting. We never had like a really formal type of governance or something that went into that, and really that was just taken advantage of through other actors that tried to centralize the protocol. So that's why I personally support the Treasury, because I'm sick of seeing certain points of centralization in the ecosystem, but also as far as investing forward in the ecosystem, that's very important too, because when you have the past few years, ETC has relied on ETH's innovation budget. Magneto, or the recent Geth fix in Ethereum that's causing chain splits, was all provided by the Ethereum innovation budget. It wasn't provided by ETC developers per se, even though we do have some great developers that are contributing, and some of them contributed for a while, and they're awesome, great people, very code focused. But when that innovation budget starts to differentiate elsewhere, because ETH2 is technically a new network and it's abandoning ETH1 technology, and their core development infrastructure is already kind of depressed because they've been focused on ETH2 stuff. So that puts ETC at a point to where it's like, okay, so our innovation budget is going away. All our recent security holes were actually contributed from someone else's project budget, and so where do we go from there? Because the ETH code is not, the ETH 1.0 specification is not really stable. And when you read the actual ETH 1.0 specification, it says proof of stake for all the places where it rigged the design for a proof of stake ecosystem, right? So there's so many things that aren't designed for what ETC is identified as, and that requires a lot of change, and also requires an immense amount of funding just to even change things. And I think from the people who are proposing the Treasury, I definitely don't see anything being malicious, as some have said. We have this solution. It requires immense amount of funding, and this is the mechanism that could do that. And not only that, but also further decentralize ETC. Yes, you're going to have people who have to collaborate and make decisions and voting and governance, but overall, it'll make ETC more efficient, in my opinion, less centralized, and I could get ultra detailed in that. But yeah, that's why I always supported the. I was resistant to the Treasury, but after seeing being in ETC so long, it's like, well, if we're gonna have change, it has to be funded. And the current holders of ETC, I could say, or the main protocol providers, have reduced their development team size absolutely dramatically. So, and there's no transparency around that situation. So who's going to come? I mean, if we're going to rely on donations and benefactors again, it's going to have the same type of centralization loopholes that we had. And then, what else is there? There's a lot. I don't want to dive too deep into. There's a lot of subject matter, but in all, prevent the monopolization or franchise by a single entity, as Donald is fully aware of in one of his articles about ETC's corporate capture. And sure, you might not be ensure the Treasury is not ideal. I think limited makes sense, as if there's a time limit or something. But as far as for the broader picture, it's for the good of ETC. Just like with SHA-3, which is an amazing proposal. Sure, in the short term, some people are going to be pissed off about it. For example, maybe some miners, maybe the Ethash ecosystem is going to be a little disrupted by it. But it's what's good for Ethereum Classic, the Ethereum Classic project, in the long run. So I think the Treasury's impact is more of a 10-year impact, and I don't mean 10-year Treasury, but I mean as far as long-term sustainability, ETC needs a solution when the Ethereum innovation budget leaves, and that's going to be a big issue because all of our security fixes came from there. Who's going to be doing that security research? I don't see that coming from donations anymore.
Right. Donald, I'm sure you have a response to that.
Well, it was very long, but first, thank you so much, Steph, for coming on, and to have someone from Europe, from the Mantis team, but Mantis team is part of IOHK, and from the side of the people who are proposing the Treasury, to come on live and to debate. I think it's very useful for us to talk, and I think that this is what creates the better environment and the positive environment that Peter said, no? To actually talk like this face to face, and instead of trying to trick each other on social media with comments and I think it's called chicanes in English in politics, clever phrases and fallacies. So it's thank you very much for that, and I think it's great that you came on to talk about. I think you have the two big things that I think are reasonable objections for me are, one, that it is true, and that ETC Labs, since they took since they got leadership of their development of ETC at the end of 2018, they've been a total attacker on ETC. They tried to impose first they took over the GitHub. So they put one person in the admins of the GitHub, and that person kicked out everything else and stayed alone in the GitHub where the client was managing the GitHub. The second thing was, okay, if you want us to return the GitHub, we have to start an Ethereum Classic Foundation where we put money, and that foundation is going to decide everything, more or less like a Treasury, but they were going to put the money, I guess. No, it was a total attack, and I acknowledge that. And even though there was a lot of tensions inside the community, and there were other clients, there was Parity and then something called Multigeth. So they didn't have a monopoly, but because of economies of scale and how these blockchains work, in the end, the client called CoreGeth, that is managed by ETC Labs, has 96% share in the node in the nodes of the network. No, and so, but my response to that point specifically, I'm going to talk about the other point later. My response to that point specifically is that the fact that ETC Labs has been attacking and trying to take over ETC does not mean that ETC is centralized. precisely because they don't have this tool of a treasury to enforce everything. The rest of the community has been able to stop them all the time, and we stopped them, for example, from creating that stupid foundation that they wanted to do. We stopped them. We just created a new GitHub, and now the new GitHub is where the ECIP process is. We preserve the ECIP process as the decision making process, and they cannot do anything if it doesn't go through the ECIP process. I think that it is true also that in August of last year, just after the attacks, ETC Labs, because they have this 90% share or 96% share, it was easy to say, okay, these are our two proposals. One is to put MES to protect the network from attacks, and two, to change the hash algorithm from eth hash to etc hash to further protect the network and to have its own. So I was very annoyed with that. I was against it. I didn't feel that I had any possibility of debating it, etc. And they just went ahead and did it. But why did they do it? It's not that they did it. It went through the ECIP process. The ETC co-op accepted it. Whoever else there accepted it. There was rough consensus. And even though I was against it, it was approved. And not only that, but it was adopted by the miners and the node operators. And today, those two features that they proposed are implemented. It looks like centralization. Okay, let's deal with it if it is. I don't think it is, because we have a lot of power. Proof of that is that the Treasury, which is something that was highly accepted at the beginning, is being pushed back. I don't know if it's going to be approved, but ETC is decentralized, and the only way to really stay decentralized is without these money centers that produce cash and it's voted upon, etc. The other thing that is a legitimate concern, and that Ed said, is the innovation budget. The innovation budget is absolutely true. ETC, since Ethereum forked, not only ETC, but many other chains have to follow whatever Ethereum does. Why? Because the Ethereum network is the leading network in what I call the EVM standard, which is the design of and the choices for smart contracts of Ethereum are the standard that everybody has to follow. If ETC or any other EVM blockchain deviates and they change the gas system, or they change the account system, or they throw away the EVM and they put another virtual machine that is not compatible with different opcodes and stuff like that, they're going to be out of the standard and they're going to lose. Everybody has to be the standard. It's more or less a standard in this case. It's more or less like saying Windows. No, everybody has to work on Windows because 70% of the world uses the Windows operating system, or iOS, Mac, iOS for the phone, or Android. People have to work on those operating systems. So you cannot break away with a new operating system. The same thing with the EVM standard. So this is why Ethereum Classic in the last 3 or 4 years has done like 5 hard forks, and they're all inherited from innovation from Ethereum. So it's absolutely true that we inherited that. I think that in any case, you need at most 1 or 2 teams or 3 teams if you want, and each team is worth $3 million, not $100 million or billions of dollars a year for IOHK, ETC Co-op, and a third team. That's the whole budget that we need. Not only that many chains, Ethereum 2 is going to continue, Cardano, Polkadot, Tezos, all the EVM style chains, ETC, everybody's going to be innovating and cross-fertilizing each other, because every innovation, for example, if there is an innovation in privacy like Zcash, we all copied that into the other blockchains. If for some reason other blockchains solve the block size problem and they can compress transactions and make the blockchain smaller so it's easier to download when you start operating a node, well, we're all going to copy that. So I don't think that ETC is going to be this isolated animal only in its standard, and it needs $100 million a year or $500 million a year in innovation budget, and even less from a centralized treasury, because That's a higher concern for me. But the Treasury is centralizing. Money, of course, is good. Having budget for all those things, marketing, innovation, is great. That is undeniable. But if it is at the expense of canceling the decentralization of ETC, I think it defeats itself. ETC is not going to achieve its potential because we already have like 10 or 15 blockchains that are EVM blockchains and smart contracts. What is ETC going to do competing with those guys? ETC for me only competes by being base layer, just like Bitcoin, decentralized. Yes, voluntaristic financing. People are going to come, in my opinion, like they came in the last 4 years. And even those two concerns are true, I think that ETC can perfectly continue defending itself like Bitcoin defends itself from attacks and all those things. In terms of decision making process, Steve, you mentioned democracy, not democratization of decision making in ETC. I think that to introduce voting and governance, formal governance in any truly decentralized blockchain is a mistake. I think that the last thing you want is majority voting to decide what is good technically in terms of engineering and computer science for a blockchain. I think that decision making has to be just like it is now, which is a rough consensus. People come, they propose something, a change, it goes through the ECIP process. All the interested parties, which are the other developers and the miners and node operators and investors, can read it, and they just decide whether they are going to adopt it or not. And when there's no adoption, those ECIPs, those proposals die. So I don't think that like selling the Treasury because it has governance is a good selling point, because I think it's the worst thing that in terms of decision making. I think because the Treasury is going to have this voting mechanism, I think that the ECIP, in fact, the ECIP process is cancelled, because why do you need two decision making processes? You just use one, and the Treasury with the money and everything is going to win. And my last thing was yes. My last thing, Steph, I think you have, most in theory, a valid point that we have one big core get, no? It's one big developer, and they control the share of the client, no? 96% of the client. Again, blockchains are centralized. Each component of blockchains are mining is always going to be centralized. There's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 mining pools who are going to be the big ones. Developers are always going to be centralized. There is always going to be one leading developer. Even within the team, there's going to be one leading mind that is going to lead everybody. And in node operators, you're always going to have Coinbase or Binance who are going to be the huge nodes, and the rest are going to be small. Investors, you're always going to have, say, 4 or 5 big billionaires on ETC, and the rest we're all going to be small. So it's normal to have centralization in each compartment. The important thing is that there's no king on top, and all these compartments are separated, and they fight all day. Fighting all day is good, because that is decentralization. If we had order, it would mean because there would be a king imposing order. And if we install a treasury and we send 1/3 of the money exactly to 3 teams, I think it's a fallacy to say that is automatic decentralization, because it doesn't matter that the other 2 teams are going to receive the money equally as the first one, because the market is always going to choose one product that is going to be the dominant product. And we have seen that Ethereum has a dominant node, ETC has a dominant node, Zcash has 100% is one node, and they have the treasury. So it's zero decentralized. And when you see all the other chains, you always see that the largest share is always one node. Even though if we divert money and try to prop up any other product, it's not going to work. This is not a problem of blockchains or open source product. This is a problem of economics and economies of scale. In all markets, you always have 3 or 4 big guys, and the rest are going to be small. In the case of software, you always have one big guy, and I think that's going to continue even if you do the treasury. So that's my response. There's many more things, but
all right.
I want to.
I have
Just quickly, I'll do quickly. So the innovation budget in ETC is a valid issue. We acknowledge that there's a supermajority share control at the protocol providing layer, and the actors of that came in maliciously intended on controlling the code base. We haven't solved that problem, and it's got even more centralized. Another issue,
the problem is solved.
and then you also have, you guys are saying how to grow ETC and stuff, and having these conversations. It's not going to happen between tagging everyone, saying everyone's evil, malicious, and everything. But and you could say all the base layer stuff and all the Bitcoin stuff, but you have to provide the context. So when you dive deeper into things, you look at the validation layer of ETC, for example, the pool layer. Even the ADA validation layer is more distributed than ETCs. So you have to look things within context. And even when you're talking about Nakamoto principles, it's gonna sound great to people, but then when you dive deep into ETC specific, because ETC is not Bitcoin, ETC is not Cardano. If you have, we're proof of work base layer, okay, 51% majority, that's already democracy technically. But then you look at we're not even relying on proof of work because we have the MES solution. How did the MES solution come into? Well, it was just kind of handed down. I was part of other organizations and seen those things. So, ETC is not relying on Nakamoto consensus because it has a solution to mitigate the negative effects about not being a majority proof of work chain. And ETC is currently subscribed to this notion of we're going to copy F to the proof of stake switch. And it's still the status quo. It has been since multiple 51% attacks, multiple borderline exchange delistings, which thankfully I was able to convince them not to do that. Multiple pools canceling, which led to the pool distribution being even more controlled. So there's a lot of problems in ETC, but it's going to have to require change. And whether ETC adopts SHA-3, Treasury, whatever, the debates will happen. Things might not get passed. Things might not follow through. But as long as we'll get through everything. We'll get through everything fine. Just be awesome and support healthy debate, because there has been a lot of toxicity and hostility because ETC is known for that. But it's not. But we can't scale. We can't scale the discussion through that. So
yeah,
we'll
I have a question for each of you, and yes, I do agree that toxicity and name calling is not the way forward. We need to have more civil discussions, okay, like this, okay. And one of Donald's concerns was that when it boils down to a voting system, somebody who has several million ETC will always have their way because they're always going to have majority. So is there any way to mitigate that? And also, I have a question for Donald as well. You're talking about the decision-making process. You want to keep it as is. And it's actually pretty slow right now because, for example, several months ago when I interviewed Alex and we were talking about SHA-3, and he's like, what, it has to go through the decision process and nobody knows when it's going to go through everyone and when everyone is going to agree. So it's quite slow at the moment, and we don't have any final time for stuff to be implemented, whether the stuff is good or not. Is there any solution to any of those?
It was a question for me.
The two questions. The one was for Steph about the voting process. Is there a way to make it? Is there a solution to not giving too much power to the people who have, almost all the ETC?
Well, as far as like when it comes, so it's that comes to like weighted voting, right? So The problem that's a really sticky problem, and most people do it via weighted voting and zero quorum. Just let it loose, people vote. Except we're already kind of doing weighted voting, because when it comes to just like how you saw the SHA-3 delayed, whatever. Why is that happening? Because the only people invested into the code bases, the protocol providing code bases, are the kings whom have the gold that you have to beg to get things done. So you're not going to have SHA-3 without solidified investment into it, and you're not going to have SHA-3 if the people controlling that code base do not want SHA-3 because they want to copy ETH for a very long time. And you also have to have that investment that solidifies the change, because when something happens, there's always going to be maintenance and bugs, and probably after activation, like usually that happens with software. So, and when it comes to the voting mechanism right now, it's really just, hey, I create an issue, 3 people come on from each core team, and then we make an announcement. There's no broader consensus. There's almost no minor participation, and you might have 1 or 2 people that get involved. Most of them are the ETH ASICs because they want ETC to follow ETH to proof of stake, because they get to mine their hardware for a little longer. And then so when it comes to voting, we're already kind of voting because we're reliant on those who have the gold to make any changes whatsoever. So, and when you say ETC Labs has the control of all that stuff, I tend to say, well, who at ETC Labs? There's like 0 people there now. I don't know why it's not an inactive organization, and it's only down to like allegedly 3 Go developers. Everyone else is gone. So innovation budget, that's where that comes in. And when it comes to voting, I believe in weighted voting with no quorum, because we don't have artificial intelligence that's going to make everything work out that way. I really think I think a perfect voting in blockchain is far ahead of its time, but weighted voting, no quorum is the way I personally like it. And when it comes to weighted voting, we're kind of already at weighted voting, because we have to rely on those who have the gold and the control to really get things through. And that's why I support the Treasury, because you're disrupting that centralization. You're disrupting the limited, non-accessible funding that's currently in ETC. And yeah, I hope that answers your question. It's a lot of subject matter.
Yeah, I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit on the weighted voting, but I do get what you're trying to say. All right. Yes.
Weighted voting is coin voting, to be clear. Now, let's not change the name so people don't get it. It's if you have more coins, you have more votes. That's it. So whoever has the coins wins.
So it doesn't really change your concern.
Not only that, today there's no coin vote. He said voting today. There's no voting today. Today is just people who voluntarily adopt whatever changes there are. When there's normally very few participants doing a change, is because it's not controversial. So, for example, now the last meeting was Mystique, which is the current upgrade, which is to update ETC to the latest London upgrade of the BM standard, which is what Ethereum did. And that's not controversial. They're just going to apply. They're not going to do EIP 1559, changing the fee, nor burning all those crazy things that Ethereum did, or diffusing the bomb, the difficulty bomb, because ETC did that in 2017. So they're only going to adopt a few changes that are good for ETC to adopt. So because that's zero controversial, of course.
So they meet and vote together without ETC holders participating at all. There were 3 people making the decision in the broader ETC.
There were 3 teams in the call, and I heard the call, and it was very, very, very cool. And everybody, yes, shall we do this? Yes. There's no controversy. So when there's no controversy, even in Bitcoin, everybody voted for 95% voted to do the last change in Bitcoin. And another thing that you said, Salorm, is the ECIP process, no, which is combined with this explanation that Steph did. Steph said today the ECIP process voting is centralized. When it's not true, because if it were, we wouldn't be fighting for the Treasury. Now somebody's is trying to introduce
Depends.
the Treasury,
Depends on the context.
we are
Depends on the
stopping the
context. Some
Treasury.
changes are more
But
agreeable than others.
calm down, Steph. Calm down. Let me talk. I let you talk. Okay.
Three core developers make a decision.
We're not gonna be very civilized if you're gonna be interrupting. I am trying to answer what Celarm asked. Bueno, the thing is that so there's no voting today, and that's how it has to be. Not voting in the Treasury with money and everything. That's creating a democracy, creating a corporation, and it's totally centralized. There's no way around it. There's no explanation you can give, Steph, that would change that. In terms of the ECIP process, Celarm, it is good. Slow is good. These are the things that all the people that started in crypto in the last year don't understand. Bitcoin is slow to change because slow is secure. You cannot. There's two things that you cannot increase in a blockchain: speed. If you increase innovation speed, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to break it. And the last change in Bitcoin was in 2017, and then the next one was years later in 2021. In Ethereum, they change very fast, and it's very complex, and that's unfortunate for ETC because we have to copy it. And what happens? When yesterday it split, and it was a total crisis because it's too complex and they go too fast. This thing of forking 4 times a year, or 3 times a year, or 2 times a year is extremely dangerous, especially for a base layer. So if ETC now, after Ethereum moves to proof of stake, we become this base layer, extremely valuable $1 trillion chain that is slow, that is good. So you have to change your cassette in your mind. Forget about traditional systems. Forget about normal governance. Forget about Charles talking centrally and directing everything, because that's not secure. This is a total change of paradigm. Decentralization doesn't have these things of the technology department, the marketing department, the treasury that find the CFO and all that. This is a different paradigm. Slow is good. This is about money, property, and agreements, not about innovation. This is not about the ideas of Charles Hoskinson for ETC. This is about the most secure blockchain in the world that has smart contracts, that is programmable digital gold for sound money, property, and agreements, and like Peter said, basic rights around the world. And the last thing was, well, I forgot the last point.
Okay. All right. So today was actually supposed to be a casual day, but looks like it got interesting real quick. So I think
I am happy to have a debate with Steph alone and go point by point, because now we're talking about 10 things at a time, and it's very confusing. I would go point by point.
Yes. So Steph, if you can stay on for a little bit right after the show, that would be great. So that maybe we could set up a debate between the two of you and guys can hash it out. But as we wrap up, I want to go around the room and I want everyone to give all the people watching any advice, in crypto in general or ETC, and just wrap it up. So I'm gonna start. So with crypto, you have to treat crypto like finance. Okay, it is finance. Okay, and things go up and come down, and you have to be strategic. One thing I have learned now, which I wish I knew earlier this year, was finding ways and means to leverage your crypto when you need money instead of selling your crypto. So there are different ways to be able to leverage your crypto and get fiat to be able to do what you need to do and still own all your crypto. All those Ethereum miners who sold all their ETH when ETH was $100 March 2020, they sold a bunch of ETH just to pay a $1,000 electricity bill. All those people who did not know how to leverage their crypto to get fiat and still own all their crypto lost out so much. So if you're going to be in it, you might as well learn everything and not depend on the daily ups and downs. And don't worry about what's happening today or tomorrow. Find coins you believe in. ETC is one of the coins I believe in, and I just stash it up and hold it for the long run. All right, Donald.
I think that the chart that I showed before with the Excel, for me, that's the most interesting thing about ETC. This thing that of the list of proof of work base layer blockchains, it is going to be the only left that is programmable, and it's going to go up and become number 2 maybe. And because it's programmable and if it becomes this highly secure blockchain, it's even going to be better than Bitcoin. So who knows what is the future of ETC? So I think it's worth trillions of dollars. If there is a way of inventing a treasury that you can cancel in the future, Steph agrees in a limited treasury. If we can find a way of assuring ourselves that it can be, digamos, taken out at some point in the future and the tax is reasonable, then I think that ETC may have that future as well, no? Because once the treasury is removed, it's going to be secure again. And I agree with Steph that MES diminishes Nakamoto consensus, but IOHK is proposing checkpointing, which cancels it completely. So I think that what the other thing that I wanted to say, last thing, is that according to the monetary policy, I did my calculations again, and in March 2nd of 2022, this is in a few months, ETC is going to reduce the reward per block by 20%. So this is equivalent to the halving of Bitcoin every 4 years. In ETC, it happens every 2.33, 39 years, which is 850 days, more or less. And it's going to continue going down, down, and down. And that is a very important event because it lowers the current inflation of 5% to 3%. And then 2 years later, 2.33 years later, it lowers it below like 2% and then below 1%. So that's very important to be aware of.
Okay, so a couple of things, I guess, let anyone watching know. Kind of ultimately, cryptocurrency is very volatile. So it's more, you just have to understand what your own investing style is. So make sure you have to be comfortable with a lot of risk in that regard. But just have to put it in a lot of perspective as well, as far as how long you intend to invest on. Because keep in mind, the crypto overall market cap of the cryptocurrency in general is 2.1 trillion. And I think the stock market is, was it 71 trillion? So in the grand scheme of things, just cryptocurrency is in its adolescent stage. It will need to develop, and yes, there'll be bumps along the road. But when you are investing in, for instance, ETC or whatever coin you prefer, it's in the long term. It's a long-term investment, and that's something you just need to kind of keep in mind. There will be obviously 20% plus fluctuations frequently. You just have to be comfortable with risk and don't invest more than what you're willing to lose.
Yeah, I'll definitely love to tag off of that. I'd like to just say 3 quotes that stick with me for the rest of my life, and I wanted to drill it into you if you're definitely a viewer of mine. And one of them is patience is key. So a lot of individuals are concerned that crypto is currently a bubble, and this bubble is going to pop. Bitcoin's going to zero. All crypto is going to zero due to this massive regulation. Government's trying to control it. But you have to keep in mind, it's sort of like the internet bubble back in the 90s, where now without the internet, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We wouldn't be able to communicate. We wouldn't be trading, or yeah, if you understand what I mean by that. But the internet is something that's become useful in our everyday lives. And I believe crypto is heading towards that route in the future. Now, the second quote is knowledge is power. So sort of treat your investments as if you are the CEO of your investment, whether if it's Ethereum Classic or Bitcoin. Feel like you're the CEO of Bitcoin and notice everything that's happening in Bitcoin, or like Ethereum Classic regarding the treasury in that sense. And last, invest money you are willing to lose. Okay. So for the new traders, please avoid leverage trading, because it not only affects you, but it affects the overall crypto market as well. I see people losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, money that they have saved up for years on ends. And that makes crypto way more volatile than it should be. So that's all I have to say.
My biggest advice would be to get your emotions out of it, especially with something as volatile as cryptocurrency. And remember why you got involved in the first place, whether we're in a bull market and your portfolio is going up, or a bear market and your portfolio is going down. But especially in a bear market, buy every single dip. That's at least what my strategy is. It's a long-term strategy, so there are day traders and there's people with other strategies, but it's worked really well for me. And another piece of advice I have is to subscribe to all of these guys' channels. Learn everything you can from them because they have a wealth of information. Get on etherplan.com, learn about ETC, and participate and facilitate productive conversations and dialogues online where we can hear both sides of issues. And like the Treasury, where we have Donald, we have Steve, and we can talk about this kind of stuff and have real progress in the community.
Yeah, my final thoughts would be just like Peter's saying too. Don't forget why we're here. Fiat is burning a hole in your pocket. You know what's ever burning holes in actual people, because when you have limitless money, you could buy an endless amount of bullets. So for me, I'm here for fighting for world peace. I would not want to do anything else except advocate for crypto. If I could be that guy walking through train cars telling people to buy crypto, support freedom, financial independence for everyone, and no matter who you are around the world, that's the guy I'd be. As long as I'm able to feed my kids, I would definitely do that. Just remember why you're here. Sure, there might be dips. Maybe if you're a trader investor, you have your different priorities. But we see U.S. companies diversifying their reserves into literally cryptocurrencies, not fiat currencies, not gold or silver. They're diversifying crypto, which is pretty amazing. But protect your wealth, get financially educated, and spread financial education to all your constituents, because money makes the world go round. And educate your family, everybody. Just be an advocate for what you invest in.
All right, guys. So we have a tentative date for September 26th, right? We're trying to do it again on September 26th, and it could be on any of the channels on here, not necessarily on my channel. So stay on Twitter and be on the lookout, and hopefully we can promote that a little bit more than this one. This one was really quick, like 2 days or a day and a half or so. So, well, I'm glad you all made it, and thank you all for watching. And you guys don't shut down. I'm gonna shut down the live, but I'll see you all on the next live. Thank you.
Thank you, Seller.